Hi, I'm going to attempt to explain something fairly complex in, in simple terms through explanations of something I'm trying at the moment. I just wanted to describe some of the adaptations that I have made over the last couple of weeks to an important aspect of my metabolic approach, using myself as a reluctant guinea pig, which I often do. I've been supplementing with exogenous ketones through habitual junctures consistent with theories I have predicted would present a chronotherapeutic benefit. So, if we're thinking about what chronotherapy is, essentially, chronotherapy is typically described as being a process involving the treatment of an illness or disorder by administering a drug at a time of day believed to be in harmony with the body's natural rhythms. And we typically see that in various types of cancer and with epilepsy, which is probably a better example that you could see more more established, not more established, but it's easier to see that correlation in terms of times of seizure activity during the day. It's different for different types of epilepsy. For example, some people have seizures during the night, and that is a different type of manifestation where the seizure threshold for those individuals would be very low when they are asleep or getting ready for sleep. So that's an interesting thing to note. But typically, for me, my seizure threshold is correlating more with lack of sleep and hormonal changes throughout the day, which would not only affect my blood glucose and blood ketone readings to have them be in danger of dropping out of therapeutic ranges, which control my seizure activity very effectively. It also can affect various stressors that can trigger seizure activity for me. So circadian rhythms is hugely important in regulating that so as to maintain homeostatic balances. So if we're trying to get more technical about this, we have clock genes in the brain. So if people have brain cancer in particular, or any of these hormonal cancers as well, but brain cancer, yeah, it would just make sense that if we're looking at these clock genes in the brain, it's well known that the master circadian oscillator is something called the SCN, which is the suprachiasmatic nuclei. This is located in the hypothalamus, and it responds to peripheral and local immune stimuli. So it's extremely important in central nervous system functioning, and just your whole the whole immune system, and how that is regulated appropriately. If we have dysregulation of this SCN, this circadian oscillator in the brain, we can. It's not great news for cancer management, because we're promoting these pro-inflammatory cytokines, which is a hallmark of the inflammatory cascading signaling processes that are involved with proliferation of these cancers, the systemic inflammation that we see. So if we can control this better, partly through chronotherapy, so taking drugs at these specific times, or supplements, or even feeding and fasting and all these things, we can better regulate those processes to better manage an array of diseases, even if we don't specify that for cancer management. And obviously, if the brain is the initiator for these applications, then that is these hormonal, this hormonal release that can act to regulate these factors. That would be, a huge, an important aspect to look at, and to try and do something about. So the SCN, as I've explained, is a small group of the suprachiasmatic nucleus, if I've pronounced that correctly. Is a small group of cells located in the hypothalamus, as I've said, kind of near the middle of the brain, towards the bottom, and it controls these circadian cycles and influences so many physiological and countless physiological and behavioral rhythms occurring in the 24-hour periods that we measure days by, and that is including our sleep-wake cycles, which are incredibly important. It's also why, if you have any kind of epilepsy, particularly reflex epilepsy, which I have, if your sleep-wake cycles are disrupted in any way, that can greatly lower your seizure threshold. So there's been extensive research in the past looking at the molecular basis and mechanisms of the biological clock situated in that area, the SCN, and we understand that neurotransmitters are a very important component of SCN function. So if we can control that, we can increase. If we can control that through chronotherapy, using drugs at particular times when seizure threshold is lowest, the overexcitability of those neuronal, the neuronal activity that is kind of like a definition of what happened, a characteristic of when someone has a seizure, or just increased seizure activity, so kind of like a partial seizure. We can mitigate for those times when the neuronal activity is overexcitable, at specific times of day where we know habitually that seizure threshold is lowest. So that can help to restore homeostatic states in which we can have better control of the seizure activity with all types of epilepsy. So this is a huge thing. And one way I do that is through use of exogenous ketones. So as I've said, astrocytes within the brain, and I had an astrocytoma, so this is really important for me. There's also some, residual damage in that area. As I've said, astrocytes kind of work with the SCN in the hypothalamus they're kind of interdependent as clock genes go, and the astrocytes exert several immune functions in the central nervous system, and we see growing evidence, particularly over the last 10 or so years, that points toward role of these cells in the regulation of circadian rhythms. So it's been well established that with any type of epilepsy, as I've mentioned, there are particular periods of the day where seizure threshold can be so variable that we have periods of very low seizure threshold, periods of very high seizure threshold, to do with changes in hormones, blood sugar levels, various stresses that we encounter in the day, mental states, all these things. So one of the main ways that I regulate that is I try and use exogenous ketones at particular types, particularly appropriate types of the day that would go with my hypotheses of what would elucidate a chronotherapeutic benefit. So going with specific times of the day. So typically late morning, that's when my seizure threshold is typically, I keep saying typically, but it's often at its lowest point. So my seizure threshold is often quite low at this point. So it's now late morning, so I'll kind of show one thing that I try and do. I explained what I do in a very contrived manner, I think, which wasn't great for a video, but I'll try to show what I do. So I take Ketoforce as my primary exogenous ketone supplement, and with Ketoforce, it is, well, just to explain what it is, it contains the endogenous ketone body beta hydroxybutyrate, which is what is produced in the liver when your body is getting into the metabolic state of using fatty acids for energy. So beta hydroxybutyrate is a ketone body. Ketone bodies are energy from fatty acids, and if you are this endogenous ketone is beta hydroxybutyrate. So that is the ketone bodies is the ketone body that I measure in my blood, and that is what I use to measure what the therapeutic levels of beta hydroxybutyrate. Of the benefits for me for seizure management through testing of blood ketones. So at this particular time of day, my hormones are changing in a way that has influence on my blood ketones and blood glucose readings that I test with a glucometer, and that can have me in danger of slipping out of the therapeutic range for me as an individual. So I use exogenous ketones at time appropriate periods to help to give me a kind of a top up if I'm in need of it, to better manage seizure activities. So one thing I have to be aware of with this is it is very alkaline, so it has a pH of 10 to 11, and this is it. So that means it's recommended that it is best mixed with an acidic beverage. So one way that I do this, I will try to demonstrate, is that here's my kind of setup for you. So I've got my scale, and one way I would apply this as a supplement, which I'll demonstrate now, is to have the recommended 3 capfuls. So I'm demonstrating this now. So got 3 capfuls there. So 3 capfuls typically equals about 25 to 30 grams if I measure on my scale. So yeah, got 25 grams there of this exogenous ketone preparation with sodium potassium salts on a very strict ketogenic diet for cancer management. You have to be very aware of your electrolytes. So with sodium and potassium, you have to make sure to not have too much sodium, as being in this state of very, very strict therapeutic ketosis is such that you can get uric acid stones, uric acid kidney stones, if you're not drinking enough water, and if your ratios of magnesium, potassium, and sodium are not in such a way that it would not make the urine too acidic, so creating these uric acid kidney stones, which I experienced once, and it wasn't an ideal thing. So I do supplement with potassium citrate now, which helps to alkalize the urine and flushes it through quite nicely. So another thing that can benefit is the acidic beverage that I use to mix with the ketoforce, the exogenous ketone preparation. There is I use apple cider vinegar, which has numerous proposed benefits, which is it's not seen as much as I would like in the literature. There is, in the scientific literature, easy for me to say, there are various studies to say that it could help to maintain low blood glucose, that it can also help with your gut. There's this connection with the gut and the brain, and the immune system, of course, that is quite well known and just has huge benefits for overall health. So what I'll do is I'll just get a spoon to add this to my very nice experiment here. So I'll add that. So I would typically add 2 teaspoons of this. So here we are. Whoops. 2 teaspoons. Right. Okay. And then what you would want to do here is add a lot of water, because otherwise it'll taste absolutely foul. So if you'll see, even this is a glass bottle, okay, and that's kept in the fridge in the dark. This is a glass jar, and this is glass as well. So even though the exogenous ketones are in plastic, I make every effort now to make sure that everything is glass. So this is filtered water, so just going to add that. The apple cider vinegar that I added was about 10 grams. So we have 25 grams of exogenous ketones, 10 grams of apple cider vinegar. The apple cider vinegar is very acidic, very, very acidic, so it has a pH of about 2 to 3, and that helps to maintain a nice balance with the exogenous ketones, which are very alkaline. So as I said, it's recommended to have an acidic beverage with the alkaline exogenous ketones, in this case ketoforce. Other companies, such as with Prove It with their Keto OS, they add malic acid to the powdered exogenous ketones. So that's, yeah, just a similar kind of thing. So I'm just adding a lot of water to this, and then I'll down it and just drink it down. So yeah, that's I've been using exogenous ketones, playing around with them for about 2 years now, and I've found them quite effective medicinally. I did have problems initially with just the fact that it would increase my blood ketones, but as the hour after I was taking it, interestingly, my blood glucose went up a little bit with the blood ketones, which, if I'm doing this nutritionally, typically the blood ketones go up as the blood ketones go, as the blood glucose goes down. And I've found, interestingly, with my experiments using the apple cider vinegar with the exogenous ketones, is that it has the same results on my readings, where I test every 15 minutes for that hour. I appear to be able to have those similar kind of readings where I'm doing that through nutritional ketosis alone. I typically only use the exogenous ketones if I'm experiencing increased seizure activity. That represents itself. I'll have a sip of this. Yeah, still tastes disgusting, but I forgot what I was saying now. Yeah, I typically only use this medicinally if I'm experiencing increased seizure activity, which would manifest itself as pins and needles in my tongue, throat, this side of my face, because it was that side of my brain that was affected. If I have issues with my scar from my operation, it helps to, the exogenous ketones help to reduce that inflammatory response that I can sometimes get with things like change of temperature, lack of sleep, too much overstimulation of that area of the brain. It can cause problems with my scar, and that's I guess I've explained as much as I can try to explain. It's quite complicated, and I'm still learning about it, and I guess I'll get there in time. I've got an MRI scan on the 4th of May, so next week, which should be interesting. I'm kind of jabbering on now. Got nothing else really to add. But MRI scan on the 4th. I'm kind of excited about it in a way, and very anxious at the same time. It's a very strange situation where you're using yourself in this. I like to say it's an autobiographical scientific experiment, but it can have its ups and downs where you're experimenting with all these things, and some things work incredibly effectively, but some things not so much. Also have to be careful with this to make sure it doesn't have too much apple cider vinegar, because apple cider vinegar, if you are drinking it because it's so acidic, it can erode the tooth enamel. So ideally you want to just get it down really quickly, and try not to have it disrupting your teeth. And the reason you wouldn't want to have it on its own is because it can cause damage to the esophageal lining as well, which is something you don't want. You don't want esophageal cancer as a result. That's not an ideal situation if that was the worst case scenario. Just my MRI scan should be interesting. I've had ups and downs with my seizure activity lately, just because I've been experimenting with lots of different things and trying to exercise at certain times. Exercise is a seizure trigger for me, so I will try to continue to resolve those issues that I have, in terms of trying to do as much exercise as I can to gain the benefits of that. And then, just trying to maintain a healthy, happy state. And it's my 3-year cancerversary, so if my MRI results are as fantastic as I hope they will be, I will be celebrating. And that feeling after you get a positive scan is the most incredible feeling that you can get. So fingers crossed for a positive result on the 4th, and I will share the results of that scan, and I am looking forward to it, and I am also anxious and nervous in equal measure. So it's an interesting scenario, I guess you could say, an interesting situation to be in, but it's the situation I find myself in, and I will continue to, even if I get a positive scan, I will continue to try to optimize my approach. Positive scans actually even give me more motivation to continue, not just with doing this to help myself, but to help all those other people out there who are struggling with not just brain cancer, but any kind of cancer, really. It's devastating. So, yeah, just I'll try my best, and have a nice day, and keep me in your thoughts for the 4th of May. I'll update then. Bye.